Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the media. Welcome to the post-cabinet brief for Friday, June 30th, 2017. The brief this afternoon will be done by the Minister of State, Honorable Joseph Harmon. Mr. Harmon.
Thank you, Mr. Archer. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the media. I remember the last time I told you good afternoon from here. The post-cabinet press briefing will cover matters which were dealt with at Cabinet at its meeting on Tuesday, the 27th of June, 2017. At that meeting, His Excellency President David Granger informed Cabinet of his decision to attend the 38th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of the Caribbean Community, CARICOM, which will be convened in Grenada from July 4th to the 6th. The meeting will be held under the chairmanship of the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell, Prime Minister of Grenada. Among other things, the heads are expected to deliberate on such matters as the CARICOM single market economy, a work plan and budget for the region's single ICT space, and the CARICOM Human Resource Development 2030 strategy. His Excellency President Granger, who is the outgoing chairman of the conference, will address the opening ceremony of the meeting. His Excellency will also take the opportunity to brief his colleagues on the Guyana-Venezuela border controversy. The Honorable Minister of Agriculture briefed Cabinet on the effects of the recent heavy rainfall across the country. He reported that in addition to heavy localized rainfall in parts of the country, that there were heavy showers caused by the tropical storm Brett. This had resulted in flooding in some parts of the country, especially at high tide, when the outfall channels had been closed. The floodwaters had, however, receded quickly wherever drainage pumps were located and were operational. And there were some cases where some drainage pumps had to be relocated. The Honourable Minister also alluded to the high levels of rivers, especially the Pomeroon and Kanji rivers, and it was agreed that the agencies concerned will put in place a plan to minimize, if not prevent, flooding in as many areas as possible should the heavy rainfalls continue, while the Ministry of Agriculture and the Civil Defense Commission will keep engaged and continue to monitor the situation closely. Guyana will sign the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries Fund for International Development, OFID, Agreement for Encouragement and Protection of Investment in Vienna, Austria, on July 14, 2017. The agreement between Guyana and OFID will provide opportunities for Guyana to benefit from OFID's resources to advance private sector, trade finance, and public sector operations. The Honourable Minister of Finance will sign the agreement on behalf of the Government of Guyana. Cabinet approved the appointment of Mrs. Patrice Lafleur as Secretary General of the National Commission for UNESCO in Guyana. Mrs. Lafleur, a human and social development practitioner with more than 30 years of experience in the area of education, training, youth development, youth entrepreneurship, women and gender development, and community development, was recommended by a panel of evaluators as the best of 5 candidates who were interviewed for the position. The audit report and audited financial statement of the National Trust of Guyana for 2015 was submitted to Cabinet by the Honourable Minister of Education. Cabinet accepted the report and granted approval for it to be tabled in the National Assembly as required by law. Cabinet approved of the appointment of His Excellency Mr. Holger Wilfred Michael as non-resident ambassador of the Federal Republic of Germany to Guyana. Guyana and Germany had established diplomatic relations in September of 1966 and have enjoyed warm and cordial relations with cooperation and agreement in a wide range of areas, including technical assistance, conservation of protected areas, natural resources management, cultural exchanges, and sport. It is expected that the appointment of His Excellency Ambassador Wilfred, who will be resident in Trinidad, will foster strengthened relations between Guyana and Germany. Approval was also granted for the appointment of Mr. Ralph Hemsing as Honorary Consul of the Federal Republic of Germany to Guyana, who will succeed Mr. Bente Weil, and his appointment is expected to strengthen and enhance relations between Guyana and Germany. Cabinet has approved the request for appointment of His Excellency Mr. Gil Artalzi as the non-resident ambassador of the State of Israel to Guyana. It is expected that the appointment of Ambassador Artalzi, who will be resident in Panama, will provide the opportunity for Guyana and Israel to pursue enhanced relations and closer cooperation. Cabinet also approved the appointment of Mr. Jorge Armando Medina Alba as Honorary Consul of the Republic of Colombia to Guyana. The entry into force of the visa exemption agreement between Guyana and Colombia will result in an increase in the number of Colombians visiting Guyana and vice versa for business and tourism purposes. It is therefore anticipated that there will be an increased demand for consular services and activities in both countries. Guyana will be represented at a consultative meeting of the National Commission on UNESCO in the Caribbean to be held in Kingston, Jamaica from July 10th to 11th. The meeting will bring together Secretaries General of the National Commissions of UNESCO to strengthen collaboration between the Cluster Office for the Caribbean and national commissioners. Focus on areas of opportunities based on UNESCO's special initiative for the Caribbean and adopt shared views on key issues in the Caribbean in preparation for the forthcoming 39th General Conference of UNESCO to be held in Paris, France from October 30th to November 14, 2017. Mrs. Patrice Lafleur, recently appointed Secretary General for UNESCO in Guyana, will attend the meeting. Cabinet has approved the participation of the Ministry of Finance at a conference on the Chinese renminbi in the Caribbean, opportunities for trade, aid, and investment on July 10th and 11th in Barbados. The conference will explore possible opportunities and costs associated with the increased use of the renminbi, the Chinese currency, in the Caribbean. The conference will examine how the use of this currency could enhance trade facilitation, trade finance, and banking relationships, and help to safeguard access to global financial services. Honorable Mr. Winston Jordan, Minister of Finance, and Mrs. Donna Yearwood, Head of the Debt Management Division of the Ministry of Finance, will represent Guyana at the conference. Cabinet has approved participation in the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force Assessors Training Course to be held in the Turks and Caicos from July 10th to the 14th, 2017. The course aims to train a number of experts in the Caribbean to be AML CFT assessors, to be evaluators of the legal, institutional, and supervisory framework in the respective countries, and to recommend action to correct deficiencies and to come into compliance with FATF standards. The training is of critical importance to Guyana as we prepare for the fourth round mutual evaluation of the AML CFT scheduled for 2022. Mrs. Joanne Bond, Senior Parliamentary Counsel, Minister of Legal Affairs, will attend the course. Guyana will participate in a seminar on fulfilling the Arms Trade Treaty, reporting obligations in CARICOM, to be hosted by the United Nations Center for Peace, Disarmament, and Development in Latin America and the Caribbean. This conference will be held in Barbados over the period 6th to 7th of July 2017. The seminar will provide practical insights into ATT, reporting requirements, and the preparation of national reports to fulfill ATT and other international reporting requirements. Assistant Superintendent of Police Clifton Davis will attend the seminar. Guyana will attend a tactical safety and planning course funded by the government of the United States of America in El Salvador on September 4th to the 15th, 2017. The training will include drug raids planning and entry techniques, operational planning and briefing skills, risk assessment, handcuffing safety, firearm safety, suspect handling, and search techniques, and the ethical and judicial use of force. Selected members of the Guyana Police Force and the National Anti-Narcotic Agency will participate in the training. Approval has been granted for the attendance at the training program on cybersecurity and cyber drill to be held in Suriname from July 3rd to the 7th, 2017. This technical training opportunity is being provided by the International Telecommunications Union for cybersecurity managers and technicians. This training will enable Guyana to enhance cybersecurity preparedness and to respond to current emerging cyber threats. Mrs. Mariana McPherson, Cybersecurity Manager, and Mrs. Asina Marks, Cyber Analyst, both of the National Data Management Authority, will attend the training program. Cabinet has approved Guyana's participation in the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees' 15th Regional Course on International Refugee Law and the 6th Regional Course on Statelessness to be held in Aruba on June 26th and 3rd to 30th. In fact, that should have been completed today. The course seeks to address the various issues of concern to populations under the framework of the Brazil Declaration and Plan of Action, and engage in dialogue to develop and strengthen the asylum system through the exchange of good practices. A process of training and awareness for the eradication of statelessness and the protection of stateless persons will also be developed. Superintendent of Police Ewart Ray is participating in that course. Cabinet approved Guyana's attendance at the Symposium on Information Technology Agreement by the World Trade Organization in Geneva, Switzerland, between June 27 and 28, 2017. The symposium allowed for a better understanding of the ITA and the options available to the government of Guyana, and will create an opportunity to foster relationships with countries to expand and strengthen global trade in ICT products. The Director of E-Services at the National Data Management Authority will represent Guyana at the symposium. Cabinet approved the attendance at the Guyana Cooperation Council Doing Business in Guyana seminar in Suriname over the period June 28th to the 30th. The seminar sought to enlighten investors about Guyana's tax requirements and procedures and encourage Suriname's businesses to invest in Guyana. Mrs. Karen Chapman, Deputy Commissioner, Guyana Revenue Authority, attended the seminar. Cabinet approved Guyana's attendance at the 2017 World Conference for Physical Therapy in Cape Town, South Africa, from July 2nd to the 4th, 2017. Guyana became a member of the World Conference of Physical Therapy in 2017. This body represents the physiotherapy profession internationally and aims to improve global health by encouraging high standards of research, education, and practice. The Director of Disability and Rehabilitation Services, Mrs. Ariane Mangar, will represent Guyana at the conference. Cabinet has noted the award of contracts by the procurement entities and the National Procurement and Tender Administration Board as follows. For the construction of a new store for the Ministry of Education, Planting Walk, Vredenhoop, Region Number 3, contract in the sum of $17,231,000, awarded to S&K Construction Services and General Supplies. For the rehabilitation of sanitary facilities, dormitory, teaching block, and water system at the President's College, Region Number 4, Ministry of Education, a contract in the sum of $26,186,000, awarded to Z&H Investments. For the construction of Handenveld Nursery School, Mahaika, East Coast Demerara, Region Number 4, a contract in the sum of $19,835,000, awarded to Arkesoon Contracting Service. For the repairs and maintenance work at Cyril Potter College of Education, the Ministry of Education, a contract in the sum of $20,366,000, awarded to A. Ograsein and Sons. For the rehabilitation of Middlewalk, Katrina's Lust, Region Number 5, a contract in the sum of $18,285,000, awarded to Shiraz Bacchus, General Contractor. For the construction of a health center at number 77 Housing Scheme, Quarantine, Region Number 6, a contract in the sum of $15,048,000, awarded to Memorex Enterprises. For the rehabilitation of the Mazzaroni Wharf and Dockyard, Transport and Harbors Department, for the sum of $43,526,000, contract awarded to S. Mirage Contracting. For the rehabilitation, construction of urban roads in Region Number 2. Firstly, Lot 4, the Sideline Road, Pomoma Housing Scheme, for the sum of $15,315,000, awarded to Mohammed Fawaz Bacchus Construction. Lot 5, Farouk Street and Old Road, Mariah's Lodge, for the sum of $14,251,000, a contract awarded to Mohammed Ramzan Ali Khan Construction. For the construction of drains, structures, and installation of pure water distribution network at Lust and Rust, West Bank, Demerara, Region Number 3, contract in the sum of $150,640,000 awarded to Guy America Construction, Inc. For the upgrading of 3rd Street to Back Road, Covent Garden, on the east bank of Demerara, Region Number 4, contract in the sum of $15,900,000 awarded to SKI Construction. For the rehabilitation of IC Road, Block 22, Region Number 10, the contract in the sum of $22,935,000 awarded to Associated Construction Services. For the procurement of plant design, supply and installation of water treatment facilities, and the upgrade of the reticulation at Iflot, Diamond, and Shitanka, a contract in the sum of $3,977,716,000 awarded to Sino Hydro Limited, China. For the upgrade of river defenses at Scottsburg, Quarantine, Barbies, for a sum of $42,135,000, contract awarded to Anirudh Ramcharitar Construction Firm. For the rehabilitation of Marijuana Stelling, Region Number 1, contract in the sum of $27,993,000 awarded to M. Sukai Contracting Services. For the rehabilitation of Supernam Stelling, Region Number 2, contract in the sum of $120,245,000 awarded to Esmeraj Contracting Service. For the acquisition and installation of a propulsion system for the MB Sandaka Transport and Harbors Department vessel, the contract in the sum of $291,445,000 awarded to Brenco Shipping and Trading Company Limited. For the procurement of textbooks for national distribution, the Ministry of Education, the contract in the sum of $142,112 United States dollars, contract award to Royard Publishing Company. For the sum of £27,300, contract award to Macmillan Distribution. For the sum of £185,437, contract award to Bookpoint Limited. For the supply and electrical wiring for standby generator, power supply for the Ministry of Finance, a contract in the sum of $40,599,000 awarded to RW Electrical Company and Building Contractors. For the procurement of fortified sweeteners or sweetened biscuits under the National School Feeding Program, April 2017 to March 2018, the Ministry of Education, a contract in the sum of $243,447,000 awarded to Banks DIH Limited. For the installation of uninterrupted power supply for the CT scanners at the Georgetown Public Hospital Corporation, a contract in the sum of $35 million awarded to Meditron, Inc. For the procurement of a side scan sonar for the Maritime Administration Department, a contract in the sum of $31,069,000 awarded to Brenco Shipping and Trading Company Limited. For the construction of Golden Beach Boulevard, Bartica, Kayuni, Mazuni Region Number 7, a contract in the sum of $40,874,000 awarded to Ivor Allen. For the supply and delivery of one oil containment boom for the Ministry of Natural Resources, a contract in the sum of $24,400,000 awarded to Kaizen Environmental Services Trinidad Limited. And for consultancy services to facilitate the implementation and institutionalization of an entrepreneur skills training program for at-risk youths, the Ministry of Public Security, an increase from a previous sum that had been awarded under this contract, and an increase in the sum of $60,000 US awarded to the Small Business Bureau. Ladies and gentlemen, those are the matters which were dealt with at Cabinet at its meeting of Tuesday, 27th of June 2017, and I'm now prepared to take your questions. Okay, no questions today. Thank you. Oh, I see.
Adam Harris, Prime News, sir. The Supernam Stelling. We've been spending a lot of money on that Stelling. Now you're spending a further $120 million. To do what, really?
Well, these are facilities which provide a benefit for the residents of Region 2. It is a principal point of entry into the region, particularly for goods and services, that is, huge trucks and other forms of transportation going into that region. And so it is important that we always keep it at a very high state of maintenance. You'd recall several years ago when there was a problem there at that Stelling, that long lines of trucks were lined up for days trying to get to and from Region 2. And it is part of our responsibility to ensure that the citizens of every region of this country, that we're able to provide a reliable form of transportation for the goods and services. And this is why we will have to spend the money on these facilities.
Good day, Minister. Suraj Ryan, Kaiser News. Minister, we've seen an estimated $750 million expected to be spent on the High Street building. We would have already spent a lot of money on that building as well. Could you say what the works will have to be carried out at that building?
I can say to you that that is a project which is under review. Those are sums that were allocated but not spent. Because we are looking at the feasibility of actually spending that sum of money on this building. And as recent as yesterday, the matter came up at our conference, and we've undertaken to have a review of that decision. So that, I can say to you, that's the current state of play with respect to the High Street building.
Minister, could you also say what is the status of the local content policy as well as the Sovereign Wealth Fund? Where are we right now?
You're going off the thing, but I'll take the question nonetheless because it's important for the Guyanese people to know that during the course of this week, we had a visit from a team from the IDB at the request of His Excellency, the IADB sponsored this mission for us to review where we are with respect to our preparation for oil and gas in 2020. And so we are doing now what is known as a tabletop review of all of the agreements, all of the arrangements that are actually put into place as of now. This came out also out of a meeting in which His Excellency had appointed a team of ministers together with the government advisor on oil and gas, Dr. Jan Mangal. The president had appointed the ministers, which he calls a quintet plus one. That is to say, the Minister of Natural Resources, who will be the lead minister on the matter, the Minister of Finance, Minister of Public Infrastructure, Minister of Business, and the Minister of State. That team will report on all issues in relation to the sector, to Cabinet, and ultimately all decisions that have to do with this sector will be made at Cabinet, where the President is the head of the Cabinet. So to say to you that all of the matters which we're talking about, local content and so on, these are all matters which are being reviewed. I can say that we've had extensive consultations with several entities, and I believe Minister Trotman has actually listed them, including Chatham House, the IDB, the IMF, the World Bank, the CARICOM, the Commonwealth Secretariat, and several other international bodies. And so we are basically at this point accepting advice, and ultimately we will have to come up with what is known as best practice and what is in the best interest of the people of Guyana. We will make decisions about this industry that is in our best interest. And in this regard, I want to note that there are several statements that are being made, some by our neighbors with respect to the role of Exxon in Guyana and all of that. But what I want to say is that we are a sovereign nation, and we will make decisions that are in the best interest of the people of Guyana. Yes.
Abina Rockcliffe, Kaiser News. Mr. Harmon, can you state, you noted Jan Mangal as one of government's advisors, and you said that government is in consultation with a lot of agencies, Chatham House, etc.
Yes.
But can you state who are the persons leading government's negotiations with ExxonMobil? Who are our lawyers? Who are making sure that we have the best deal?
Dr. Mangal, as you may well be aware, his credentials are international. He's what we call cutting edge in the industry. Fortunately, also, he's a Guyanese, of Guyanese parentage. He operates out of Houston, Texas, which is the center of the oil universe. And so, in addition to that, from time to time, we will identify leading experts in the field of law, environment, and other negotiating skills, which we will put to use for the benefit of the people of Guyana. So I won't be able to say to you that this is the particular company or an individual that's doing the negotiation. Of course, within the Ministry of Natural Resources, there are some in-house capacities and capabilities, but that in-house capacity will be augmented by the resources which are available internationally and which we will use to our best interest.
Okay, just a follow-up.
Yes.
Thus far, government has been able to negotiate a hike in the royalty, etc. Can you say if Dr. Mangal was the one leading negotiations in this regard, who else was there when these things were negotiated?
Well, I can't say specifically to you that who else was there, who was not there. Those are matters I believe that are still on the wraps. I can't say specifically to you, but what I can say to you is that the matter was led by a competent Minister of Natural Resources, right, Minister Trotman. And the government has all confidence in that minister to lead the sector and to negotiate or lead any negotiations in the best interest of the people of Guyana. And His Excellency the President reinforced that by putting him as the head of the quintet plus one that has been established recently, including Dr. Mangal.
Along the same line, sir. There have been criticisms globally of ExxonMobil, how they shaft people with royalty, what they did with the environment in some places, ignoring climate change, and one instance giving us money for climate change. Has this government been taking note of some of the things ExxonMobil did in the past and trying to put safeguards in place to ensure we don't end up in those positions?
Of course, when I said earlier that we look at best practices, it means that we'd have to take into consideration all of the issues with respect to the industry that had taken place before. So we are taking note of all that is being said, and I want to say that as a government, that we have no issue with persons who are actually bringing up information for the benefit of the Guyanese people. So that if there is some practice in some country, it is always important for us to know, so that in our negotiation, our continued engagement with any foreign company, that the Guyana will be best served by the information which is provided. And the government is not the repository of all information. The world is so interconnected these days that people are in different parts of the world that can say to you, look at this and look at that. And I believe that in the current environment, that we're taking note of all of the information that's being provided by not only Guyanese people, but persons who are actually sending information to the newspapers and to the media generally. We take note of it.
Right, and James, Nightly News. Minister, during this week, we would have seen several statements coming from the opposition, basically accusing the government of being on a massive spending splurge. This comes a few months after you declared that the government is going through a period of austerity and things like that.
Yes.
That time you laid out some measures that will be taken. Can you say if those measures had indeed been taken or in effect, or can you give us like a figure of how much have been saved from that time to now, if any? And secondly, can you confirm whether...
Why don't you have this way of asking 3 and 4 questions roll into one, and then about 6 questions at the same time?
No, sorry,
So
this
we
is my
take a
last
note of
question.
that. Yes.
And secondly, can you say whether President Granger had ordered a COI into the alleged assassination plot against him?
Okay, the first question has to do with the austerity measures. And the measures which I had announced earlier, we have in fact started taking steps to ensure that those measures are put into place. Yesterday at a conference of all of the ministries, including the permanent secretaries, we were able to make an assessment of where we are in relation not only to austerity measures, but with respect to our engagement and spending on public sector projects. So that the engagement which we had yesterday and the continued engagement which we have on a monthly basis with permanent secretaries, we're able to now keep a check on these things that are happening. The president yesterday at that conference re-emphasized the importance of austerity, that we were in a situation which had to be carefully managed, that our resources are not limitless, and therefore we have to be very careful in our spending so that we can ensure that we get the best value for our money. The second question had to do with a COI into the assassination attempt, the assassination plot. Yes, the president has in fact ordered an inquiry into that matter. We are going through the phases of preparation for it, and I believe that within another 2 weeks or so that we will be able to make public that commission of inquiry and the identity of the person or persons who will lead that inquiry.
Just a quick follow-up.
Yes.
On this same matter, I think Mr. Jagger 2 weeks ago said that the inquiry was, the president has no confidence in the Guyana police force, and so that is why he would have set up the inquiry. Can you say if that is the case?
Mr. Jagger don't be making these statements. Mr. Jagger is not in government. And at any point in time, it is the authority of the president to order an inquiry into any matter that is of public safety or defense or for the safety and happiness of the people of this country. And so, when we go into the National Assembly and we say our prayers before the National Assembly, before we start, we always pray for the safety, happiness of His Excellency. It's something that is there. It's part of what we do. And therefore, any plot or any attempt to cause harm to His Excellency must be something which is in the public interest. And so it is not a matter of not having confidence in any particular entity, but it's the right of the President to determine at any time if he requires a deeper level of investigation or inquiry into any matter. And so the Commission of Inquiry has been a mechanism which has been used by this administration to ferret out information which would not necessarily or usually be available to the regular investigations.
Zoe Fraser, Starbuck News. Good morning, Mr. Harmon. Good afternoon, sorry.
Yes, good afternoon.
Could you say whose decision it was to have homes rented for out-of-town ministers at a cap of $500,000? And secondly, as far as we are aware, there are two ministers who are benefiting from such an arrangement. Could you say why the flats in Camberville was not considered for them?
Well, I think that the clerk of the National Assembly has given a fulsome answer to that question, and I believe that the answer is all-embracing. I believe he did in fact state that it was an administrative decision as part of the benefit awarded or given to ministers who serve in this country. So the question as to how much it is or how high or how low it is never engaged Cabinet at our last meeting, but since it's a matter of public interest, this is what I would say, that it has been a matter which is for the National Assembly and Parliament, because such funds come from that budget. It comes from that budget. And so that is really a matter for the National Assembly and for the clerk of the National Assembly. The question of availability of houses in the Chilibar Villas and anywhere else. Since when we came into office, that property was in a rundown state, very rundown state. Since then, we have been spending huge sums of money to rehabilitate them, and as residences are rehabilitated, then persons are put into occupation of it. We have a huge amount of persons in government service who require government housing, but we cannot provide it. That even after all of those residences in the Chilibar Village would have been completed, we will still have a deficit in government for government officers to be accommodated based on their conditions of service and the contract of employment which they enjoy.
Just to follow up, it has been reported that it was an administrative decision, but what I'm trying to find out is whether or not administrative in terms of, is it cabinet, was it Minister Jordan, who was it? And secondly, it was also reported that Minister Jordan had contacted the clerk asking for the cap to be lowered to $300,000. Are you in a position to say why?
No, I'm not in a position to A, confirm that there's been such a conversation, and B, as to the reason for it. But I think you have the two major players, you've identified them, and I believe this is where the information would rest on that matter. Yes.
Minister Harmon, Marcel Thomas, Starbuck News. I just need a little bit of clarity.
Yes.
When you were explaining negotiations on oil and gas, is it that you're saying that government is using Mr. Mangle and the ministers as in the now, and as you go forward and changes are made, or as money comes, you'll add to your negotiating team?
No, I didn't say that. What I said was that these are the lead persons, and that that group will identify the skills or the skill set that is necessary to deal with any particular issue. For example, I can say to you that the team that came this week from the IDB, they looked at financial arrangements. They looked at sovereign wealth fund arrangements. There's another team that looks at technical arrangements, another team that will be looking at legal arrangements. But these are all persons of international repute who you can actually go online and check their qualification, their skills, and so on. So what I'm saying to you is that these are additional skills that we will embrace as we move forward in this area. And it's not as if, okay, we have made a decision on this and that is it. We are basically embracing wider areas of expertise, and these areas of expertise is provided for by our international relations with banks, with institutions, and with other governments.
Final question.
Sir Gildevi Kaichen News. The EU said yesterday 348 billion was given to Guyana between 2006 2013, and I think it spilled over to last year. Could you say whether that kind of money would have rescued Gaisuko had you been in government during that time? And secondly, I think it is the former finance minister Ashley Singh is oversees what he's saying, or his lawyer saying rather, that asked me the questions. You believe that this is an ideal situation from where the government is standing?
Two important questions. Let me take the last first. That I don't know that any lawyer is, I mean, I've had a limited practice at the bar, that you can actually put yourself in the place of a person who is under some investigation. The lawyer at best represents the interests of his client. He cannot replace his client. Because if in fact SOCO or anybody decides to charge, Mr. Nandala is not going to go and stand up in the docks for anybody. So it is important for us to understand that Mr. Ashley Singh is the person, or Dr. Ashley Singh is the person who is of interest, and therefore it might be in his interest to present himself to be questioned. If there is nothing he has to fear, I think he can come back and deal with it. But I don't understand the insertion of Mr. Nandalal into this process. He's already a part of being investigated in the same process. So, you know, I think there might be an issue there, but this is just my take on the matter. The 348 billion from the EU, it is clear that if this money was spent in the sugar industry, we wouldn't have been in the situation we are today. We would not have been in this situation. This is huge sums of money that clearly did not go into where it was meant to go, into the sugar industry. And I mean, the leader of the opposition is now always saying, oh, we'll do an inquiry here, an inquiry there, and so on. If you inquire into this, you'll find that the bulk of this money went elsewhere. And so when the PPP and some of their friends are going to the sugar workers and crying, so we're sorry for you, and so on, they should explain what it is that they did with all of this money. What it is. Why is it now that our sugar industry produces sugar higher? Our cost of production is higher than the world market prices we're getting. This is not something that would have happened overnight. It didn't start in 2015. These were noted trends going along all the way. And so when we came into office, the decisions which the PPP government, they were afraid to take, we took those decisions in the interest of the industry, and the people of this country, primarily the people who work in the sugar industry. What we are doing is to try to save it. The PPP, they were on a path of killing it. And this is what I want. This is my last word on the matter for today, that we are working in the interest of the people of this country, that we are working in the interest of the people in the sugar industry, and we are working in the interest of ensuring that there is still a sugar industry going forward in Guyana, albeit at a different stage. So that will be my final word for today. Ladies and gentlemen, I trust that you have a wonderful weekend and a wonderful holiday weekend as well. Thank you.